The forgotten signal the outpost barely deserved the name. Three domed structures clustered together on a dead moon, surrounded by ice and eternal darkness. Inside, 17 souls lived in whispers, terrified that speaking too loudly might remind the galaxy that humans still existed. Captain Mira Thorne stood before the scanner array, her calloused fingers tracing patterns across the cracked display. At 38, she looked older. Survival had a way of aging people faster than time. Her dark hair, streaked with premature silver, fell across tired eyes that had seen too much loss. "Captain, you need to see this." Jack's Corvette's voice cut through the station's perpetual hum. He was young, barely 25, with the kind of optimism that Mira had thought extinct. His hands danced across his console, pulling up readings that made no sense. She moved beside him, close enough to smell the oil and metal on his clothes. "What am I looking at?" "A signal. Old frequency, pre-silence era." His excitement was palpable, dangerous even. Hope killed more humans than despair ever had. "It's broadcasting coordinates." Dr. Sienna Vale emerged from her archives, a woman who lived more in the past than present. Her gray eyes shone with recognition. "That frequency, it's military grade. Command level." She paused, her voice dropping to something like reverence. "That's the Phantom Cruiser's signature." The name hung in the air like a prayer. Every child raised in the silence knew the legends. The Phantom Cruiser, humanity's greatest vessel, vanished 40,000 years ago when their species had gone dark. Some said it was destroyed. Others claimed it had been hidden, waiting for the right moment to return. "It's impossible," Mira said, but her heart betrayed her. It hammered against her ribs with something she'd forgotten. Possibility. Jax turned to her, his young face lit with that damn hope again. "What if it's not? What if someone's calling us back?" "Back to what?" Mira's voice was sharper than intended. "We're scattered, broken, hiding in shadows. We're not the species that built that ship. Maybe that's why it's calling now." Sienna moved closer to the display, her fingers trembling as she accessed historical files. The old texts speak of a contingency, a failsafe for when humanity had fallen far enough to be ready to rise again. Mira wanted to dismiss it. 40,000 years of silence had taught humanity that drawing attention meant death. The galaxy was ruled by others now, the Concordate Empire, the Hive Collective, a dozen other powers that saw humans as either extinct or irrelevant. Both were safer than being noticed, but something in that signal called to her. It resonated with a part of herself she'd buried under years of scavenging and hiding. "How far?" she asked quietly. Jax's fingers flew across his console. 3 weeks at our ship's maximum burn. Deep in the uncharted void, past the forgotten zones." "That's suicide territory," Mira said. "Nothing comes back from there." "Nothing human," Sienna corrected. "But what if that's the point? What if it's hidden where only we would dare to look?" Mira studied the signal's waveform, watching it pulse with mechanical heartbeat regularity. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, to stay hidden, to survive. But survival wasn't living. Her people had survived for 40 millennia, and what had it brought them? Fear, silence, slow extinction. She looked at Jax and saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Not just hope, belief. He believed humanity could be something more again. When had someone last looked at her like that, as if she could make a difference? "We'll need supplies," Mira heard herself say. "Food, fuel, weapons. If we're doing this, we're doing it right." Jax's face broke into a smile that transformed him. "We're actually going?" "We're actually going." Mira felt the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. "Sienna, pull everything we have on the Phantom Cruiser. I want to know what we're walking into." Jax prepped the Wanderer. Full systems check. As they scattered to their tasks, Mira stayed before the signal, watching it pulse. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, something waited. Something that remembered what humanity had been, and perhaps knew what they could become. That night, as the outpost slept, Mira found Jax in the Wanderer's cargo bay, running diagnostics. He looked up as she approached, surprise and something warmer crossing his face. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. She shook her head, leaning against the bulkhead beside him. "Tell me something. Why do you believe in this?" "You weren't raised with the old stories. Your generation only knows hiding." Jax was quiet for a moment, his tools falling still in his hands. "My grandmother, before she died, she told me about Earth. The real Earth before the silence. She said we used to look up at the stars and see possibilities, not threats. He met her eyes. I want to feel that. Just once. Mira felt something crack inside her chest, a wall she'd built brick by careful brick. Your grandmother was a dreamer. So are you, Jack said softly. Or you wouldn't be here. They stood in the cargo bay's dim light, the signal's pulse echoing through the ship's systems like a second heartbeat. Outside, the galaxy turned, vast and full of dangers. But for the first time in longer than Mira could remember, she felt alive. 3 weeks, she said. Whatever we find out there, it changes everything. Jax nodded. I know. What neither of them said, but both felt, they would face it together. Awakening the giant, the Wanderer shuddered as it dropped from faster-than-light travel, its aged engines screaming in protest. Through the viewport, the dying star cast everything in shades of crimson and shadow. And there, suspended in that twilight, was the Phantom Cruiser. Mira's breath caught. No hologram, no ancient recording could have prepared her for this. The vessel stretched across space like a sleeping god, easily 5 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull scarred with the marks of forgotten battles yet somehow still majestic. Sweet, merciful void, Jax whispered beside her, his hand finding hers unconsciously. She didn't pull away. Dr. Sienna Vale's voice crackled over the comm from her station. Energy readings are off the scale. That ship shouldn't have power after 40,000 years, but it's radiating like it was built yesterday. As if responding to their presence, lights flickered to life along the cruiser's surface. Thin silver lines spread across the darkened hull like veins awakening from hibernation. The effect was mesmerizing, almost organic. It knows we're here, Mira said, her tactical instincts warring with wonder. Jax guided the Wanderer closer, his piloting skill evident in every smooth adjustment. Scanning for docking ports. There, midship, starboard side. It's opening for us. The massive bay doors parted silently, revealing a cavernous interior bathed in soft blue light. It felt less like an invitation, and more like recognition, as if the ship had been waiting specifically for them. They docked with mechanical precision, but stepping through the airlock felt ceremonial. The moment Mira's boots touched the Phantom Cruiser's deck, the lights brightened. The air, stale from millennia of stillness, began circulating with a gentle hum. Welcome home, children of Earth. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, neither male nor female, ancient yet ageless. A holographic form materialized before them, a humanoid figure composed of flowing light and data streams. I am the Sentinel, it said, guardian of the Phantom Cruiser, keeper of humanity's legacy. I have waited 40,000 years for your return. Sienna stepped forward, her historian's mind racing. You're an AI, but the records say artificial intelligence was banned before the silence. Not banned, hidden. The Sentinel's form pulsed with soft light. Humanity did not fall, Dr. Vale. Humanity chose silence. Chose to retreat, to evolve beyond the warlike species you had become. I was left behind to guard this vessel until the time was right. Mira felt the weight of that revelation. Why now? Why call us back after all this time? Because the galaxy needs you again. But more importantly, because you are finally ready to be what you were meant to be. The Sentinel gestured, and corridors illuminated in sequence. Come, let me show you what you have forgotten. They walked through halls that seemed to breathe with memory. The Sentinel led them past armories filled with weapons that hummed with dormant power, past engineering bays where technology far beyond their understanding lay waiting, past gardens where plants grew in stasis chambers, seeds of earth preserved for replanting. But it was the residential quarters that struck Mira deepest. Personal spaces left exactly as their occupants had abandoned them. Photos on walls, books on shelves. Lives interrupted but not erased. Jax paused at one quarters, drawn by something. Inside, on a small desk, lay a stack of letters, actual paper preserved perfectly. He picked up the top one, his voice soft as he read aloud. My dearest Helena, another day among the stars, another day missing you. They say we're fighting for humanity's future, but all I fight for is the hope of seeing your smile again. Mira stood beside him, reading over his shoulder. The letter went on, describing battles and bravery, but also fear and longing. It ended with a promise. When this is over, I'm taking you to that colony we talked about, the one with the purple sunsets. We'll build a life there, away from all this." "They never got their chance," Jack said quietly, his fingers brushing the aged paper. "No," Mira agreed. "They sacrificed their futures for ours." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. The weight of inherited legacy, but also the responsibility to honor it by living fully. Mira reached out, her calloused hand touching Jax's cheek gently. "We're not going to waste it," she promised. "Whatever time we have, whatever comes next, we live it." He leaned into her touch, his youth and her experience meeting in perfect balance. "I'm scared, Mira, of what this means, of what we're becoming part of." "Good," she whispered. "Fear means we're still human." She kissed him then, soft and brief, a promise sealed in the shadows of the past. The sentinel appeared in the doorway, its form dimming respectfully. "The crew quarters on Deck 7 are prepared for you. Rest. Tomorrow, there is much to show you and much to decide." That night, Mira and Jack stood together in the cruiser's observation deck, watching the dying star's light paint the void. Sienna had retired to the archives, already lost in 40,000 years of data. "The Sentinel said humanity chose this," Jack said. "Chose silence." "Do you believe that?" Mira considered. "I believe we were tired. Tired of war, of fighting, of proving ourselves. Maybe silence was the only way to heal." "And now?" She turned to him, seeing her own uncertainty reflected in his face. "Now we find out if we've healed enough. If we can return without repeating the mistakes." Jax pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist as she leaned back against him. They stood like that, two humans in a ship built for thousands, feeling small and significant all at once. "Whatever happens," he murmured against her hair, "I'm glad I'm here, with you." Mira's hand covered his, their fingers interlacing. Outside, the Phantom Cruiser's systems continued their awakening, ancient power flowing through forgotten circuits. But inside this moment, in this embrace, the future felt less like a burden and more like a gift. "Get some sleep," Mira finally said, though neither moved. Tomorrow everything changes, but she was wrong. Everything had already changed the moment they'd answered the signal. The silence of 40,000 years had ended, and humanity's second chapter was beginning, written by the hands of scavengers and dreamers who dared to believe they could be more. The price of silence. The alert screamed through the Phantom Cruiser at dawn, or what passed for dawn in the void. Mira was out of bed instantly, Jax rolling out beside her, their shared quarters forgotten in the rush of adrenaline. "Captain, we have contacts!" Sienna's voice cracked over the comm. Multiple ships dropping from FTL, one's broadcasting concordant military codes. "The other," she paused. "The other is human." Mira and Jax reached the bridge within minutes, still fastening their uniforms. The view screen showed two vessels approaching. A sleek alien cruiser bristling with weapons, and a smaller human ship that looked cobbled together from a dozen different technologies. "Hail them both," Mira ordered, settling into the captain's chair. The Sentinel's hologram materialized beside her, silent but watchful. The alien appeared first. Zathara was tall and elegant, her skin a deep azure that seemed to shimmer in the light. Her people, the Yathari, were the Concordate's premier diplomats, which meant they were also its most dangerous negotiators. "Unknown human vessel," Zathara's voice was melodious but carried an edge. "You are operating pre-silence era technology. By Concordate law, all such artifacts belong to the Galactic Heritage Commission. Power down your vessel and prepare for inspection." Before Mira could respond, the second screen activated. The man who appeared was human, but unlike any Mira had seen. He wore formal attire that seemed ancient yet immaculate, and his bearing spoke of authority long held. "Captain Thorne," he said, somehow knowing her name. "I am Ambassador Cale Dryden, representative of the Hidden Enclaves. We need to talk before you make any decisions regarding our people's future." "Hidden Enclaves?" Sienna moved closer to the screen. "The legends spoke of humans who never went silent, but we thought they were myths." Cale's smile was thin. "We are very real, Dr. Vale, and we've been watching, waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves. The Phantom Cruiser's awakening was meant to signal us, not salvagers." Mira felt the insult but controlled her reaction. "I don't care who you expected. We answered the call. Now tell me what you want." "To reunite humanity under proper leadership," Cale said simply. The enclaves have preserved our culture, our technology, our strength. We can guide the scattered remnants back to glory if they follow our direction. Under your control, you mean, Jax interjected from his station. Kale's eyes shifted to the young pilot, dismissive. Under experienced guidance, yes. The Phantom Cruiser represents power, power that requires wisdom to wield. Zethara's image flickered. This conversation is touching but irrelevant. The Concordat has governed this region for 15,000 years. Humanity had its chance and failed. The Phantom Cruiser will be secured for study, its weapons systems dismantled. This is not negotiable. Everything is negotiable, Mira said quietly, especially when you're talking to someone sitting inside the most powerful warship in the sector. The Sentinel spoke for the first time, its voice resonating with ancient authority. Captain Thorne is correct. The Phantom Cruiser recognizes her as its commander. Any attempt to board or seize this vessel will be met with defensive measures. Both screens erupted in protests and threats. Mira killed the feeds with a gesture, leaving the bridge in sudden silence. Well, Jack said into the quiet, we've certainly gotten their attention. Sienna was already pulling up data. The enclaves, if they're real, they could have resources, knowledge, ships. But Kale's attitude suggests they see us as subjects, not equals. And Zethara represents an empire that's gotten comfortable without us, Mira added. They won't give up control easily. The Sentinel's form dimmed thoughtfully. This is humanity's choice to make. The cruiser's awakening was meant to gather your scattered people, to give you the strength to stand again. But how you stand, as conquerors, as supplicants, or as something new, that was always yours to decide. Mira stood pacing the bridge. Every instinct screamed caution, but caution had bought humanity 40,000 years of darkness. Bold action was required, but which action? We need time, she said finally. Time to understand what we're dealing with. Sentinel, can you extend shields around the entire vicinity? Create a no-fly zone? The Phantom Cruiser's defensive field can encompass 300,000 kilometers. However, doing so will fully activate the ship's systems and alert every power in the galaxy to our presence. Do it. As the command executed, the cruiser hummed to life. Energy cascaded across its hull, and a shimmering barrier erupted outward, pushing both visiting ships back. On the screens, Zethara and Kale's vessels scrambled to avoid collision. Jax moved to Mira's side. That's going to make them angry. Good. Angry people make mistakes. She activated the comms. This is Captain Mira Thorne of the Phantom Cruiser. To the Concordat and to the Enclaves, you will withdraw to a safe distance and wait. In 72 hours, I will announce humanity's decision regarding our return to galactic affairs. Until then, this space is sovereign human territory. She cut the transmission before either could respond. Sienna whistled low. You just declared independence for a species that barely exists. No, Mira corrected. I bought us time to figure out if we want to exist again, and how. That evening, Mira stood in the observation deck, staring at the two ships hovering at the edge of their defensive perimeter. Jax found her there, as she'd known he would. Kale sent another message, he said, moving behind her. Threats, promises, the usual diplomatic dance. Zethara too. They both want meetings. Let them wait. Mira leaned back against him, feeling his warmth. Tell me honestly, what do you think we should do? His arms circled her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. I think we shouldn't go back to what we were. The old humanity conquered and burned and made the galaxy fear us, but I don't think we should bow to them either. We shouldn't be ashamed of existing. A third path, Mira murmured. Is there one? She turned in his arms, facing him.
There has to be.
Because I'm not letting anyone, human or alien, tell us who we're allowed to be. She kissed him then, fierce and claiming. We write our own future. Jax kissed her back with equal intensity, his hands sliding up her back. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he smiled. 72 hours to change everything. Then we'd better not waste them. Outside, the Phantom Cruiser gleamed with awakened power. Inside, two hearts beat in rhythm, carrying the weight of species-defining choices. The silence had ended. Now came the hard part, finding their voice. Ghosts of War, the third ship, arrived without warning, tearing through space with impossible speed. Alarms shrieked across the Phantom cruiser as the massive vessel decelerated, its hull marked with military insignia that predated the silence. "Identify that ship," Mira barked, strapping into the captain's chair. Sienna's fingers flew across her console. It's the Warhammer, flagship of the Third Fleet. Captain, according to records, that ship was lost 40,000 years ago. The Sentinel's hologram flickered urgently. "Captain, I must inform you. The Phantom cruiser was not the only vessel hidden. An entire armada was placed in stasis, programmed to awaken when this ship activated. They're coming online across the galaxy." Before Mira could process that revelation, the Warhammer's commander appeared on screen. Admiral Tomas Reeve was a man carved from stone and discipline. His uniform was pristine, his bearing military perfect, and his eyes held the cold certainty of someone who'd gone to sleep expecting to wake to war. "Phantom cruiser? This is Admiral Reeve of the Colonial Defense Forces. I'm assuming command of this operation. All personnel will follow standard military protocols. We have enemies to assess and strategies to deploy." "Admiral," Mira said carefully, "the war ended 40,000 years ago." Reeve's expression didn't change. "Wars never end, Captain. They just pause. I've been reviewing data since awakening 3 hours ago. Humanity is scattered, weak, and surrounded by species that occupy our former territories. That's an unacceptable situation. We have the firepower now to reclaim what's ours." Jax leaned close to Mira, whispering, "He's serious. He actually wants to start a war." The situation deteriorated rapidly. Kale's Enclave ships emerged from hiding. There were dozens, all armed with advanced technology. Zathara's single cruiser was suddenly joined by a concordant battle group, and still more human vessels appeared, ancient warships awakening from their long sleep. But the most dangerous arrival came as a single angular ship that radiated menace. The bounty hunter Nyxora broadcast on all channels, her reptilian features split in a predatory grin. "Humans," she hissed, her translator giving her voice a mechanical edge. "So eager to kill each other, you don't notice those of us who want to kill you for profit. The Phantom cruiser's weapon systems are worth more than entire planets. I will have them." Her ship opened fire without further warning. Plasma bolts screamed across space, slamming into the Phantom cruiser's shields. The barrier held, but the ship rocked. "Return fire," Reeve commanded. "Belay that," Mira countermanded. "Sentinel, evasive maneuvers. We're not starting a war." "Captain Thorne," Reeve's voice was ice. "I am the ranking military officer." "You will stand down!" Mira stood facing the screen. "With respect, Admiral, you don't understand this galaxy anymore." "That's not an insult. It's been 40,000 years. Let me handle this." Nyxora's ship came around for another attack run. This time, Kale's fleet moved to intercept, apparently deciding humans killing humans was preferable to an alien claiming the prize. Zathara's forces maneuvered for advantage. "It's going to be a massacre," Sienna breathed. Jax was suddenly at the weapons console. "Captain, I can target Nyxora's engines. Disable her without destroying the ship." "But I need your order." Mira looked at him, young, capable, and willing to trust her judgment. Then at Reeve, who represented the old way. Finally at the chaos developing outside, where ancient grudges and new greed were about to ignite into violence. "Do it," she said. Jax's fingers danced across controls that responded to him like he'd been born to them. The Phantom cruiser's weapons, dormant for millennia, came online with terrifying precision. A single lance of coherent energy struck Nyxora's ship, surgically severing her engine array. The bounty hunter's vessel spun helplessly, momentum carrying it away from the battle space. "Cease fire, all vessels!" Mira broadcast on all channels. "The next person to shoot gets the same treatment. We didn't wake up after 40,000 years to immediately start killing each other." "Captain Thorne," Zathara's voice held newfound respect. "You show restraint. That is unexpected." "We're full of surprises," Mira replied. "Now everyone backs off while we sort this out." "That's not a request." The various fleets hesitated, clearly calculating odds. The Phantom cruiser had just demonstrated precision and power that made everyone reconsider their assumptions. Reeve's image reappeared. "Captain, we need to discuss your command style." "We need to discuss what humanity is going to be, Admiral. And that's a conversation that requires calm minds." The standoff stretched. Then, slowly, ships began to withdraw to neutral positions. The immediate crisis passed, though Mira knew it was temporary. That night, exhausted and wired with adrenaline, she found Jax in the ship's small garden, one of the stasis chambers the Sentinel had activated. Actual Earth plants grew here, their green leaves alien after a lifetime seeing only metal and stone. "You saved us today," she said quietly. He turned, and she saw the weight in his eyes. "I almost killed someone. That shot, if I'd been off by meters. But you weren't." She moved to him, taking his face in her hands. "You were perfect, precise, everything humanity needs to be now." "I'm scared, Mira." His voice cracked. "What if Reeve is right? What if the only way to survive is to be what we were?" She kissed him softly, then deeper, pouring everything she felt into the connection. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. "Then we prove him wrong. Together." They made love there among the earth plants, a desperate and tender claiming of life in the shadow of death. Two people choosing hope, choosing each other, choosing to believe that humanity could be reborn without repeating its past. Later, wrapped in each other's arms on the soft moss, Jax whispered, "What happens now?" Mira traced patterns on his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady. "Now we make a choice, the kind that defines species." Outside, the Armada waited. Inside, two lovers held each other as if love alone could reshape the future. Perhaps it could. The New Dawn. The summit took place on neutral ground, an abandoned station between territories, its halls echoing with the ghosts of old commerce. Mira stood at the center of a circular chamber, representatives of a dozen powers arrayed around her like judges. Admiral Reeve commanded one delegation, grim-faced military officers from the awakened fleet. Ambassador Kale led another, the enclaves polished and superior. Zathara represented the Concordat, flanked by species Mira didn't recognize. And in the shadows, even Nizora watched from confinement, her species interested in the outcome. "Humanity must choose," High Chancellor Vexthor announced, his forearms spread in a gesture of finality. He was ancient even by Concordat standards, having guided the Alliance for millennia. "You possess weapons capable of destabilizing the Galactic Order. The Council will not permit such uncertainty." "You mean you won't permit competition?" Kale interjected smoothly. "Humanity built an empire once. We can do so again, if the Concordat stops trying to keep us caged." "An empire built on conquest and blood," Zathara countered. "Which is precisely why you went silent. You couldn't sustain that path. So we should bow instead?" Reeve's voice was steel. "Except scraps and shadows? I didn't sleep 40,000 years to wake to human cowardice." The arguments escalated, voices rising in the ancient way of councils. Too much talking, too little listening. Mira let them rage, watching, waiting for the right moment. Jack stood behind her, his presence a steady anchor. Sienna was at her side, recording everything for history, and the Sentinel's projection waited, silent witness to humanity's judgment. Finally, Mira raised her hand. Something in the gesture, simple, commanding, human, cut through the noise. "You're all asking the wrong question," she said into the sudden quiet. "You want to know what humanity will do with its power. But the real question is, what should humanity be?" "A guardian of peace," Vexthor suggested. "A reclaimed empire," Kale countered. "A deterrent force," Reeve added. Mira shook her head. "No. We should be what we were always meant to be. Explorers, dreamers, builders." She gestured to the Sentinel. "Show them!" The AI's projection expanded, filling the chamber with images. But these weren't battle plans or territorial maps. They were blueprints, massive generation ships, terraforming platforms, deep space research stations, agricultural vessels. "The Phantom Cruiser," Sienna explained, her voice gaining strength, "was never designed as a warship. That's a misconception based on its weapons. It was designed as a seed ship, the first of a fleet meant to spread humanity across the stars, not through conquest, but through growth." The Sentinel's voice resonated. 40,000 years ago, humanity stood at a crossroads. They could continue their path of expansion through force, or they could retreat, heal, and return as something better. They chose healing. They chose silence. Now healed, they must choose what to build. Mira continued. "The weapons on these ships? Defensive measures for a species that knew the galaxy was dangerous. But their true power is what they carry. Genetic banks from Earth, cultural archives, technological seeds. Everything needed to create new worlds, not conquer existing ones." She turned slowly, meeting each representative's gaze. The Concordat fears us because they remember what we were. The Enclaves want to reclaim that past glory. Admiral Reeve wants to defend what we might build. But I say we offer the galaxy something different, partnership and expansion. Vexthor's weathered face creased thoughtfully. Explain. The galaxy is vast. There are millions of systems unclaimed, unexplored. Worlds that could support life with the right technology. Mira's voice grew passionate. Humanity proposes this. We take our Armada, our seed ships, our technology, and we venture into the unknown. We build new colonies, terraform new worlds, establish new trade routes. And we don't do it alone. She gestured to Zathara. The Concordat gains expanded borders and new resources without bloodshed. You gain human innovation and fearlessness in exploring dangerous territories. To Kyle, the Enclaves gain a purpose beyond hiding. You can lead this expansion, prove your worth through creation rather than isolation. To Reeve. And our military protects this endeavor, not conquest, security. Defensive pioneers. The chamber fell silent. The proposal was radical, unprecedented, and exactly what nobody had expected. Nygzora's voice crackled from her restraints. And what of those like me? Bounty hunters, mercenaries, the ones who profit from conflict? Mira smiled coldly. You'll be busy. The frontier we're proposing to open is dangerous. Plenty of work for protection, exploration, and salvage. Legal work. Profitable work. This is madness, Reeve said, but his voice lacked conviction. We're offering to give away our advantages. No, Admiral. We're offering to use them wisely. Mira moved to him. You want humanity to matter again? This is how, not through fear, but through being indispensable. The species that opens frontiers becomes the species the galaxy needs. Kale studied her with newfound respect. You're asking us to trust that cooperation is stronger than dominance. I'm asking you to try something new. For once. Vexthor exchanged glances with his Concordat delegation. Long moments passed. Finally, he nodded slowly. The Council will consider this proposal. If humanity agrees to disarm its most destructive weapons and focus these vessels toward exploration... Done, Mira said immediately. Sentinel, begin converting our military ships to colony configuration. Retain defensive capabilities. Remove offensive planet killers. The Sentinel bowed. Acknowledged, Captain. 3 months later, Mira stood on the Phantom Cruiser's bridge beside Jax, watching the first colony fleet depart. 12 ships, human and alien crews working together, headed for a cluster of promising systems in the Outer Veil. Reeve commanded one, his military precision now applied to protecting pioneers. Kale led another, his enclave finally given purpose. We did it, Jax whispered, his hand finding hers. We started it, Mira corrected. Building this future will take generations. Sienna appeared beside them, a genuine smile on her usually serious face. The first joint human Concordat research station just came online. They're already making breakthroughs in faster-than-light travel. Zathara sent her compliments. The bridge crew worked in comfortable efficiency around them, humans from a dozen colonies training alongside species that had once written them off as extinct. The silence had ended not with a roar, but with a whisper of possibility. That night, in their quarters, Mira and Jax made love slowly, savoring each touch as if memorizing hope itself. Afterwards, tangled in sheets, they watched through the viewport as ships moved like fireflies across the dark. Do you think it'll last? Jax asked. This peace we've built? Mira considered. I think peace is like love. It's not something you achieve once and keep forever. It's something you choose over and over every day. He pulled her closer. Then I choose it, with you, every day. She kissed him, pouring everything into it. Gratitude, love, hope for futures yet unwritten. When they parted, both were breathless. Sentinel, Mira called softly to the ever-present AI. Plot course for the deep survey. I want to see what's out there. Course plotted, Captain. Departure in your command. Mira looked at Jax, seeing in his young face the same fire that had driven their ancestors to challenge the stars, but tempered now with wisdom, balanced with compassion. Take us out, she ordered. The Phantom Cruiser's engines hummed to life, not with the roar of war, but with the steady pulse of purpose. They had been forged in 40,000 years of silence. They had been tested by the return. Now, they would be defined by what they built. As the great ship turned toward unknown stars, Mira leaned into Jax's embrace, feeling the heartbeat of a species reborn. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as explorers, dreamers, builders of tomorrow. The silence had ended. The new dawn had begun, and humanity at last had found its voice again, not in screams of domination, but in songs of creation. The galaxy would never be the same, neither would they, and that was exactly as it should be.